Well, good evening. I'd like to call to order the October 21st, 2021 meeting of the Santa Barbara Harbor Commission. Ms. Rodriguez, would you do this honor of a roll call, please?
Yes, of course, Chair McCray. Commissioner Kramer?
Present.
Commissioner Nelson?
Present.
Commissioner Sly?
Here.
Commissioner Sloan? So Commissioner Sloan is logged on at the moment, but he is having some audio problems and connection problems, but he is on. Commissioner Stanowicz?
Here.
Commissioner Stedman?
Here.
And Chair McCray. Oh, it looks like he might have froze.
Oh my goodness.
Can wait a second. But he is here, so everyone is here though.
All right. Who's our vice chair?
Me. Betsy.
All right. We might need you.
Well, let's hope that Merritt comes back on. But in case he doesn't, are there any changes to the agenda, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yeah, Commissioner Kramer, no changes to the agenda today.
Okay. Guess the next step would be public comment, but without Angela Rodriguez.
So at this time, there's no hands raised, but I do want to remind the public if they would like to comment, they can indicate that by using the raise and lower their hand icon on the control panel. Once they do that, I will notify them that it's their turn to speak and they will have 2 minutes. As of right now, there are still no hands raised for general public comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the next step is the consent calendar and the approval of the minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion on the minutes?
I'll move that we
Good.
approve the minutes.
Great. And I will second your motion, Mr. Chair, and we'll bow out.
All
Thank you
right.
for
So,
filling in.
could we have a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes?
Yes, of course. So Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Sly,
Yes.
Commissioner Sloan.
Abstaining?
Okay. Commissioner Stanowicz,
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman,
Yes.
and Chair McCray.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All righty. So are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, Chair, and we'll go through it again. Commissioner Kramer was right on top of it, keeping us going.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Have we had an opportunity for public comment?
Yes, we have. There was none.
Okay, very good. So with that, I'll turn back to you and we'll look for the director's report.
All right, perfect. Well, I got to say, you guys are true professionals. A year and a half ago, we would not have handled that as smoothly with the virtual meeting. So, well done. All right, well, yeah, so good evening, Carver commissioners and anyone from the public who's tuned in. Again, I'm Mike Wiltshire, Waterfront Director. Don't want to jinx it tonight, but we have a relatively light meeting. So we've had a run of some fairly long ones, so a light one might be nice. With that, I'll get into my report. Next slide. All right, so just a reminder, the city is currently in the middle of its annual recruitment for boards and commissions. I've listed some of the key dates up on the slide right now. So some of the things to note are that the application deadline is actually passed. So that was September 14th. And over the coming months, council will be interviewing new applicants for vacant positions. And new appointments will be made in early December. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's fairly important for our group. So as of this time, we have 3 harbor commissioners whose terms come to an end on December 31st. Commissioner Stedman has reapplied to serve an additional term, but big news, tough news. So Jim Sloan and Lang Sly will be officially ending their run as harbor commissioners as of December 31st this year.
I object to that.
Object.
As do I.
So certainly bittersweet, but I want to be the first to thank Jim and Lang for really everything they've committed to the Harbor Commission and the waterfront for over the years. Angela, do you want to put up the next slide, actually? Yeah, obviously big shoes to fill. So Jim Sloan served on the commission for 12 years and Lang Sly for 6. Personally, I've been lucky enough to overlap my short time, a couple of years now, but just really appreciate the institutional knowledge and really everything you shared and your commitment that you put towards the waterfront and the commission. So with that, I'll turn it over to the commission if either Lang or Jim want to speak or anybody else wants to say some words. So over to you.
Hey, I'll chime in.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. After you, Jim.
Well, I just was going to say that, it's been a great run. I didn't realize it was 12 years. I thought it was closer to 10, but time flies. And the thing is, I'd like to just thank, all of the commissioners who I've worked with over the years. There's one that I'd like to single out, and that's Betsy. Betsy was there when I got there, and she's still here. And although we have not always seen eye to eye on everything, I've always respected and appreciated her counsel and her views. And so I'd just like to personally thank Betsy for everything that she's done to help me be a better commissioner. And then also the staff. I've worked with a lot of people in the waterfront, and I've really appreciated their dedication and their professionalism. And they're all acted always with high integrity. I've never questioned anybody's integrity. So it's been very good for me with everybody there. And that's one of the reasons why I've stayed on the commission for so long. And so I think that the waterfront is a very well-run operation, and I'd like to see it just continue that way. So again, I'd just like to thank all my fellow commissioners over the years, and as well as all of the staff.
Well, yeah, and
Thanks for your
I'll just, Jim kind of said it all, so I guess I just have to second that. In fact, I was going to use the term dedication and professionalism for the staff too. So I think maybe he had peeked at my notes, but it has been a pleasure being on the commission and serving on the waterfront, and in particular, an honor to have my fellow commissioners let me chair the meetings last fiscal year. I appreciate that. And the staff, I think we've got, is there a better department in the city? I don't know of one, and I interfaced with a whole bunch of different departments in the city. I think we have the best staff, and gosh, it's just been a great experience. So thanks to fellow commissioners and staff.
And being singled out, I would like to thank especially Jim Sloan for just being himself, for all his ideas and his thoughts, and being on the budget committee. And it's just been a pleasure being with you, Jim, and Lang similarly. So I think you're both going to be tremendously missed.
Yeah, I would like to chime in and say that I really have gotten to know Jim Sloan pretty well, serving on an in-depth subcommittee and hearing his ideas in a smaller setting and dealing with the public. And I do remember that particular day, that picture that's up there. We worked very hard on trying to clean up the harbor. I hope we can get to our next event like that live. But I also learned a lot from Jim, and I've learned a lot from Lang, just in terms of being a very experienced administrator. And I'm really proud to have served with both you guys. So hopefully we'll run into each other around town.
And I would like to concur. I mean, Jim and Lang, both of you have been just tremendous mentors, very instructive as to how to run things well and really how to get along in difficult times when there's potentially contentious issues before us. Tremendous professionalism displayed by the both of you. Thank you very much. And indeed, I also believe your shoes will be difficult to fill.
I'd
So,
also like to thank Lang and Jim. Jim was one of those guys that convinced me of the value of commissions like this because we didn't always agree. And there was a good discourse and exchange of viewpoints and ideas. And I learned to particularly respect Jim during the work of the Slip Transfer Facts Committee. In fact, I got in trouble recently trying to have conversations with other commissioners and possibly a serial Brown Act violation because I'd grown so happy about the fact that John Stedman, Jim Sloan, and I and Mike Wiltshire could work together and communicate as an ad hoc group and actually work towards a consensus, which I thought we achieved. And I'm really grateful for that. Lang is one of those folks that actually agreed with me on occasion. And that's always a comforting thing. So with that, I'll say goodbye so we can get on to the meeting.
Oh.
Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate the kind words.
All right, yeah, certainly big shoes to fill. But six and 12 years, that's possibly more than we could ask for from two great commissioners. So a great run from both of you. And just by way of process, we did receive 5 applications for new harbor commissioners. So over the coming months, council will be interviewing those folks for those positions. So with that number of applicants, it's quite likely we'll have some new commissioners come January 1st. So we'll keep an eye on that. And as soon as they are appointed, waterfront staff will meet with them and kind of give them the best run up and lead in as we can to get them ready to be here and available for January. So yeah, tough to see change happen, but congrats to Lang and Jim. I think it's been hugely helpful to the waterfront, and yeah, you can keep your heads high knowing how much you helped here. Next slide, Angela. All right, new topic. So we talked about this briefly last meeting, but I wanted to kind of take a chance to formalize it and advertise it a little bit more. So I've been holding a standing open office hour, really available to anyone in the waterfront community and anyone in the public, every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. I'm holding space in the waterfront conference room. So really welcome anybody from the waterfront community or the public, come chat, everything waterfront. This really does help me get to know the waterfront and the community a little bit better. And yeah, just an open chance for anybody to speak. So to set up an appointment, you can call me, email me, call our office, call Angela. My phone number is down there below along with my email address. So feel free to set it up. I'll be here every Wednesday to meet with anyone who's interested. Yeah, any comments or questions on this office hour? I think it's just kind of a good tool for me to get to know the folks in the community. So, and then likewise on your end, if you're communicating with anybody as commissioners out in the harbor or in the waterfront, feel free to direct them to me if they have any questions or concerns or just want to chat. Next slide, Angela. All right, so as always, here's a little brief update with a few of the future items that we plan to get to in coming meetings. I like to put this up here just to let the commission and the public know these are the kind of things we've talked about and things that we're still working on, and then we'll get them on a future agenda. So waterfront parking permit sales, it's that time of year again, so we'll be providing a reminder and an update at next meeting. And then dredge, we're coming into the dredge cycle, so we'll get an update on that at the November meeting as well. And municipal code cleanup. So I know this got brought up over the past couple months. The intent really is for this kind of update, muni code cleanup, to happen every year. We've lagged a little bit this year, just being short-staffed and with a ton of other things going on. But we really intend to get back into that routine and kind of get into this municipal code cleanup. Clean Marina program update. So this is a really great program. We're kind of set on giving an update on it every year. It's a really good news story and a good thing that we do here in the waterfront. So expect an update on that. And insurance requirements for vessels in the harbor. Anticipate diving into this topic in the new year. It's kind of another big one that's kind of been lingering and always wanting to be talked about. And then finally, existing leases and the RFP process. So Commissioner Nelson brought this up last meeting at his request. And so I've spoken with Commissioner Nelson, and he agreed to push this into the new year because it'd be kind of a valuable topic for some of the potential new harbor commissioners to get on board, and we can deal with subcommittees and talk about this particular subcommittee. So Commissioner Nelson's agreed that it would be reasonable to kind of push that to January or February. And then obviously in January, we'll plan for any new Harbor Commission introductions and really a recap on what we did over the past year, and then kind of put it together a tentative calendar for things we want to tackle in the year to come. That brings me to the end of my updates. I'm going to hand it over to Brian Adair, unless you guys have any questions for me.
I have one.
Awesome.
The waterfront municipal code update. I'm not quite sure what that includes.
Yeah, that's a great question. It doesn't include anything specific any year. So it seems like every year we kind of comb through our municipal code and clean up everything from tiny little typos or mistypes to larger stuff like the parking ordinance update. Obviously the parking ordinance update required a little more to it. There are public meetings, a subcommittee, all that sort of stuff. But there is some level of just sort of administrative cleanup that occurs on an annual basis.
The reason I ask, and it may not be the appropriate venue for that, is back in August, we had this appeal of the slip permit revocation that was a pretty contentious issue for the commission. And one of the reasons I voted the way I did was because I was convinced by our city attorney that the municipal code had been violated by virtue of the contract, if you will, that was signed between the two parties. And it was actually essentially a sub-license. And that was, but it was not clear and it was murky. And so now we have a situation where I also felt that if it was a violation, it was a sub-license, then that sub-license was in fact created by one of our tenants. And isn't there an issue associated with that? And should the municipal code send a signal to our tenants that they should not be creating documents that violate the commercial code? I don't know if that's the place to do it, or the place to do it is in the lease agreement itself. But it's an issue that comes into my mind from time to time that was particularly problematic for the commission to reconcile prior to making its vote.
Yeah, Commissioner Nelson, I hear you loud and clear. And yes, without diving too much into that item in particular, the municipal code, Title 17 specifically, is kind of the rules and regulations on what governs our harbor and the way we do business. So making sure that that municipal code language is accurate and correct is critical. And so that's kind of what we do on a yearly basis. And this is exactly where those sort of changes would come into play.
Can I encourage you to take a look at that portion of the code then? If we're
that's what we'll be meeting on.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, we'll discuss those sort of updates when we get to it.
Great.
All right, that brings it to the end of my bit. Oh, unless anyone had any other questions on that?
I just want to make a point, Mike. I think that's a fair bit of input by Commissioner Nelson, because I don't recall, unless I'm, unless it did actually happen, I don't believe we really have given a lot of input on specific, code review areas in the past. It's been done, but I'm not sure we really weighed in on the front end. So
Right, again, so this item that we will be talking about in the future is the intent to talk about municipal code updates, not necessarily right now.
right.
Or not right now.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I think that's a great proactive future item.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions on that one? All right, I'll pass it over to Brian Adair for his facilities update.
Hello, Harbor Commissioner Chair and other Harbor Commissioners. My name is Brian Adair. I'm the Waterfront Facilities Manager. And this is my facilities management report. Next slide, please. New facility staff and employee promotions. Next slide. Lynn Burridge, project engineer. Next slide, please. Lynn Burridge started as a new waterfront project engineer on September 27, 2021. She was raised in San Pedro, California, where her interest in harbor and waterfront operations began early, watching the Port of Los Angeles develop. For the past 20 years, Lynn worked at the Santa Barbara City Airport as a senior engineering technician. Her educational background include a bachelor's degree in public administration and an associate's degrees in math, physics, engineering, and CAD drafting. Next slide, please. Kyle Langlier, maintenance coordinator. Next slide, please. On September 27th, 2021, Kyle was promoted to the waterfront maintenance coordinator. Kyle grew up in Big Bear, California, and joined the United States Navy as a vessel hull maintenance technician for 5 years. Kyle became a student at Santa Barbara City College to obtain his commercial diver's certification while working part-time at the waterfront. Kyle then left for Oakland, California to work for the Union Pacific Railroad as a freight train conductor. After moving back to Santa Barbara in 2017, he started working full-time for the waterfront as a maintenance worker / diver. Next slide, please. So the waterfront would like to welcome Lynn Burridge and congratulate Kyle Langlier on his promotion. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. I have a sort of a basic question, Mr. Adair. What's been going on in terms of the facilities management? What's been happening on the, anything happening on that front? And
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
I was wondering what the facilities, what has been going on in terms of the Stearns Wharf or around the harbor and.
Okay, I'll be glad to share some thoughts at the top of my mind. At the Stearns Wharf, we're getting ready for the annual heavy timber pile replacement. The divers are busy putting some fiberglass they're called epoxy fiberglass jackets around some piles that we identified last year and this year to help strengthen them and also to extend the life of those piles. At the wharf, we have a maintenance guy who's really busy changing out the deluge system risers. They're made out of galvanized steel and they're rusted and corroded. And so we're making an effort to extend the life of that life health safety system. Over here at the marina, we're evaluating what to do and how to do the ice house remodel project. And we have an estimate. We have 90% completion of the construction drawings. And but we also got an estimate for construction, and it's quite high. So we're trying to review what is a priority and different options so we can be supportive to the fish industry. We're working on the mini mart. There was a fire a year and a half ago, and we're going back looking into that project. That building is in operation, but we're going back to see if we're in compliance with the health and safety, and also in compliance with any new ADA codes that we may need to upgrade because we did renovate the building and we want to be in compliance. Harbor Patrol boat number 2, it needs the fiberglass hull and the deck need to be reconditioned. So we had a pre-bid job walk about a week ago, and those bids are due next week. So that boat will be out of service. Hopefully, if we go into contract, that by doing the retrofit of that boat will extend its life 10, 15 years. So that it's a good solid boat. The Harbor Patrol seem to really enjoy using it. It's very functional in the harbor, and so we want to support them. That's just some of the things that we're doing that I can think off the top of my head. Building
Great.
one was
Thank you
building
very
one.
much. That's great.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner Betsy Kramer.
Are there any further questions of Mr. Adair? Seeing none, let's turn to the harbor operations report and Mr. Eric Ingebretson.
Good evening, Chair McCray and Harbor Commissioners. For members of the public who do not know me, my name is Eric Ingebretson, and I'm the Harbor Operations Manager for the Waterfront Department. And with that, we'll get started with the report. So lobster season has started. Fish and Wildlife opens the season, and they post online that the recreational lobster season opens at 6 a.m. on the Saturday preceding the first Wednesday of October. I tried to make the slide a little more simpler, and I just put in that the season opens on October 2nd and closes on March 16th, 2022. For commercial season, again, October 6th, they open up about 5 days later, and they close that season for the commercial fishermen on the 16th of March, 2022. Of the commercial fishermen I've spoken with so far, they're getting about $19.50 a pound, and I've been told that price is likely to go up. Next slide, please. For years, the department's allowed the commercial lobster fishermen to stage traps in the launch ramp prior to the opening of this commercial season. And this year was no exception. We had approximately 30 commercial fishermen who took advantage of the designated trap staging areas. And this is a well received courtesy that the department gives the fishermen, and we continue to cooperate, and they continue to cooperate with one another, and it works well within this small area. And the best part, we didn't receive any outside complaints from users from the launch ramp during this period of time. Next slide, please. The surrendered and abandoned vessel exchange. I don't know if all the commissioners are aware, but our department does take advantage of this program. It's state funded, and it's designed to remove and reduce and prevent abandoned recreational vessels from entering our waterways. Again, it is administered by the California State Parks Division of Boating and Waterways, and the grants are awarded annually to qualified local public agencies statewide. The SAVE grant, formerly called the Abandoned Watercraft Abatement Fund, and the Vessel Turn-In Program were combined. Both were enacted in 1998 and 2010 respectively. and have provided millions of dollars in grant funds and successfully removed thousands of vessels from the waterways. Next slide, please. Locally, we've had a number of boaters taking advantage of the VTIP program, and that allows owners that qualify to turn the boat in. We dispose of the vessel and then are reimbursed for those costs through the state. In the slide, you can see we had 8 surrendered vessels in 2021 with a cost of $12,899, and we had 5 abandoned vessels in 21 with a cost of $13,924. And of those abandoned vessels, not all of them ended up on the beach. Some of them were just left in the harbor and folks walked away from them. Harbor Patrol does issue citations for abandoning watercraft. Let's see, of the 15 boats, 2 did go aground this year. And that is pretty amazing. In the past, from years ago, we've had up to 10 and 12 boats ground per season. Next slide, please. So the department did submit a grant application in March, and we were awarded a $64,000 grant in September. And again, both the VTIP, vessel turn-in, and abandoned watercraft funds were allocated into one program, so we get funds for both. Next slide, please. So Parade of Lights is tentatively scheduled for December 12th. The holiday event this year will be slightly modified, barring foul weather or an uptick in COVID infections. Staff's happy to report that the Waterfront Department, with help from both the Wharf Merchants and Harbor Merchants Associations, will move forward with this year's holiday boat parade. We're going to plan to have the snowfield out on the city pier and Santa sightings as well. The general public can vote for their favorite decorated vessel online, and this year's theme will be Santa's Back in Town. For more information, you can check all the waterfront events posted online at www.santabarbaraca.gov/waterfront. And before I conclude my report, again, I'd like to thank both Commissioners Sly and Sloan for their service. Very well done, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mr. Ingebretson?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just regarding the Save Grant program, I know you said there's several years where there's many boats that have kind of run aground. If the cost of cleanup is exceeding the grant amount of $64,000, I'm just curious, who kind of will pay for that excess if the boats are not insured? Is that something that the state will provide excess funding for the cleanup, or is that something that the waterfront would have to pay for?
Chair McCray, Commissioner Stanwyck, if we exceed those funds, that's correct. The Waterfront Department would absorb those costs.
Okay.
Right now, we've been doing well with the turn-in program, and as mentioned, it probably costs about half of what a grounded vessel costs for cleanup.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
Are you able, Eric, are you able to, in the next grant cycle, since it's an annual program, if there was a shortfall in terms of the cost, are you able to recover those funds in the next year's budget request?
Chair McCray, Commissioner Nelson, this program's pretty unique. Even if I start coming up close to exceeding what the grant is, I can reach out to other municipalities. We do have a funds assist program where, for example, if Monterey Bay approached me for funds and we were towards the end and I had $5,000 left, I could assist them with those funds. So I do work with Ventura and some other harbors close by that are part of this program. And even though we're at 64,000, I would certainly solicit other harbors for funding as well.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Stedman.
Eric, can you give us an update on Harbor Patrol? You know, staffing, how many officers we have, the positions open?
Chair McCray, Commissioner Stedman. Yeah, right now we are at, we're one officer down. We just recently had a trainee who promoted to full officer position. He was missing some of his certifications, but he is up and we have one position vacant. We are currently in the process. Testing is taking place and we have 5 applicants scheduled for oral interviews next week.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for that update, Eric.
Welcome.
And do we have further questions? I actually have a couple, actually 3, but you answered one of them. Thank you very much about the savings with respect to having a VTIP vessel versus recovering one that has washed ashore. First, couple of fun ones. Do you know if I saw this online? Somebody was asking about lobsters, California spiny lobsters available to the public. Do you know if we have those available from the fishermen directly to the public on Saturday mornings?
Chair McCray, commissioners, I believe so. I don't know 100% though.
Yes, we do.
I know our CFSV folks do have catch that they bring, but apparently Commissioner Nelson knows for sure that that's available on Saturdays.
Yeah, at the Saturday market, we do. It's Joe and Melissa Kerrigan are the primary vendors. So.
And do you know what the cost is there? I know it's pretty high because a lot gets exported.
It varies from Saturday to Saturday.
All righty then.
But last year, it ended at $42 a pound.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
That's big demand overseas for those tasty things. And another fun question for you, Mr. Ingebretson. Are we going to have fireworks this Parade of Lights?
Commissioner McCray, yes, we will.
So cool. Thank you very much.
Nice. That's one of the better shows.
All right, if there are no further questions, I think we'll turn back to Mr. Michael Wilshire. We've got some new business. We put out a request for proposals and we got some proposals, and now we have a presentation and then a request. So take it away, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair McCray. So I'll be taking the reins on this item. Brian Bossie's out of the office this week. I did want to give credit to Mr. Bossie and Patrick Henry, who've really been the ones who kind of led this RFP process through its paces since July. So I'll be presenting, but they did all the work. So this is an action item. We'll be asking for the commission's discussion and action later in the presentation. So what I'll do right now is I'm really going to go through the request for proposal process in detail. I'll provide a little bit of information on the 4 submitted proposals, and then I'll turn it back to the commission for your discussion and action. Next slide. So just to kind of orient us, here are a couple overhead images showing the lease space that we're discussing today. So the site consists of about 2,200 square feet of land area and about half an acre or 20,000+ square feet of water area. So the site includes dock space for up to 6 large vessels, as you can see in that photo. And then there's the store or office area, which is about 200 square feet. The current tenants provide a pretty wide variety of services. So large scale dive boats, whale watching, charter services, jet ski, kayak, sea-doo rentals, stand-up paddleboard rentals, and commercial or sport fishing charters. So really, this is a major space within the waterfront. So the department and myself, we have really high expectations for this particular location and the revenues generated at this location. So this space provides really key ocean-dependent services to the community. And I really feel that this space has the potential to be one of the waterfront's kind of shining crown jewels, one of the highest revenue generating tenants. So a little history on the lease. The original lease was a 10-year lease with 3 5-year options. So that's a total of 25 years. The existing lease expired in June of 2021, and it was determined by the city and the attorney's office to go back out to RFP to identify the best opportunity for the space. As of now, for a little background, the current rent is roughly $10,000 per month, with kind of a variety and some mixed percentage rents ranging from 5 to 10%, depending on what's being sold or what service is being provided. The waterfront did include a proposed sample lease in the RFP. So for the new terms that we get into, and we're not at that phase yet, the lease negotiation phase, but we did include a sample lease that called out a 10-year term with 2 5-year options, an $11,000 a month base rent and 10% percentage rent on all sales. Just for another little bit of background, the historic gross revenues have been about $4 million per year for the current tenant, and removing the last year, which was significantly lower due to COVID. Next slide. So a little bit about the RFP process itself. We began advertising this space with a request for proposal back on July 1st, 2021. So the proposals were due on August 9th. So that gave prospective parties about 6 weeks to submit a proposal. The RFP was really advertised as broadly as we possibly could. So it was well broadcast within the waterfront department, Santa Barbara County, California-wide, even nationwide. So it was in a number of publications. So we really tried to cast a pretty wide net. And it was open to all proposals, but it should be noted that so per our local coastal plan, the priorities for our lease spaces are ocean dependent businesses, ocean related, second, and visitor serving. And then the RFP package really detailed all the information required for the submittals. Next slide. So as of August, by the deadline, there were 4 proposals submitted. These 4 proposals were initially reviewed by a 3-member city team. So they were reviewed by a team of 3 senior managers, not within the waterfront department. So the folks who reviewed it initially on the city's end were the city's economic development manager, airport business development manager, and the recreation programs manager. And these 3 folks have a lot of experience reviewing and negotiating and really managing commercial leases. So they were pretty well suited to review this. Next slide. After the initial internal city review, the team deemed that all the proposals met the basic parameters and requirements requested in the proposal. And that by way of the local coastal plan, all of the proposals were considered ocean dependent uses and really fit the local coastal plan guidelines. Next slide. Upon conclusion, so the internal city team, the three managers unanimously recommended Santa Barbara Landing LLC as the most responsive and most responsible proposer. So these four proposals were then forwarded to the Harbor Commission RFP subcommittee with the internal city team's recommendations. And just for reference, the RFP subcommittee is made up of Commissioners McCray, Nelson, and Sly. And the subcommittee met on September 23rd to review and discuss these proposals. Next slide. All right, so now to dive into the subcommittee process. So the RFP subcommittee reviewed all proposals. They were provided all proposals about a week prior to their September 23rd meeting. At the meeting, which I wasn't present at, but Mr. Bossy and Patrick Henry were present at. So the RFP subcommittee reviewed and discussed all the proposals, got input from staff, input from the public, and asked a number of clarifying questions. Next slide. All right, and so after review of all the proposals, the subcommittee unanimously agreed that Santa Barbara Landing proposal was the most responsive, the most well-developed, and really that their experience and qualifications kind of lined up the best with waterfront interests and the local coastal plan. Next slide. And so this was really the recommendation that came from the RFP subcommittee to the entire commission today. They did make a recommendation that the full Harbor Commission review all four proposals and direct staff to negotiate a lease with Santa Barbara Landing LLC. And I do just want to note that the lease negotiations, if they were to not work out, the waterfront can certainly return back to the RFP subcommittee to pursue the next most suitable proposal. The city, the waterfront, we're not obligated to enter into business with any of these proposals, and so if lease negotiations aren't fruitful, we can always go back to the drawing board. Next slide. So now, before I turn it back over to you, I just want to run through a quick summary of all the proposals, just to be thorough. Next slide. So, and these proposals are in no particular order, but so first up is a proposal from Expedition Santa Barbara LLC. Their general business plan was kind of a new business venture, improving the experience at Sea Landing, modernizing facilities, making capital improvements, improve marketing, offer to-go food services, and really implement overall better management. Next slide. As far as the ownership and management of Expedition Santa Barbara, this package was submitted by a business consortium, which included Hiroko Banco, who's current president of the Condor Express. So she is an existing tenant with Sea Landing. And Expedition Santa Barbara did provide a kind of a team bio and laid out all their roles within the organization. Next slide. And Expedition Santa Barbara, from a financial point of view, they did meet all the financial requirements of the RFP, which included submitting financial and credit information. Next slide. The second proposal came from an entity called Real Adventures LLC. Their business plan was also a new business venture. They were looking to create kind of a renewed and premier focal point for ocean adventures. And they were planning to continue offering pretty much the same suite of services: fishing, diving, kayaking, jet skis, whale watching. And they were looking to also add food service and add luxury yacht excursions. Next slide. From a management and ownership structure, Real Adventures consisted of a mix of out-of-town members and local team members. And they also provided a formal bio with their respective roles. Next slide. And Real Adventures also met all of the financial requirements of the RFP and submitted the required financial information and credit reports. Next slide. All right, the next group was Santa Barbara Landing LLC, which was the entity that was recommended by the subcommittee. And so this business entity is comprised of 4 of the current sublessees. And so this includes Stardust, Channel Islands Expeditions, Santa Barbara Jet Boats, and the Sea Landing Dive Center. Their proposal plans on expanding retail sales and offering a food service area, coffee, ice cream, and they have entered in, are looking to enter into a sublease agreement with a whale watching company. Another note, they did include an agreement of concept with a local coffee roasting company to be housed on site. Next slide. As far as the proposed management and ownership structure, so the company is made up of local business owners, and the management team has established a board of directors to kind of guide the business. And they did provide a formal bio and their respective roles within the organization. Next slide. And Santa Barbara Landing did meet all of the financial requirements of the request for proposal. They submitted the required financial and credit information. Next slide. All right, and so the final proposal came from a company called Harbor Breeze Corporation. So Harbor Breeze is a fairly established company doing business for the last 20 years or so down in LA and Long Beach. And their proposal is really to kind of continue a commercial landing and managing their service and offering the same services they do down south here in Santa Barbara. They currently have a fleet of 8 vessels and a 30-year lease agreement with the Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach. And so they were really looking to expand here into Santa Barbara. Next slide. As far as management and operation, they'd be made up of their current Los Angeles and Long Beach harbor staff. And they did provide a bio and their roles within the company. Next slide. And Harbor Breeze did submit credit references. However, they did not submit the required credit reports per the request for proposal. They did indicate that credit checks are available from their private banker as needed. All right, next slide. All right, so sorry about the long-windedness, but I did want to go through each of those proposals at least in brief. I hope you all had a chance to review them as well. Now is when I'll turn it back to the Harbor Commission and really to the members of the subcommittee to discuss. And I'll put the recommendation up on the slide, which is the next slide, Angela, and turn it back over to the commission.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Wiltshire on his presentation?
I don't have one for, go ahead, John.
I just had a quick question, Director Wiltshire. Whatever became of the conception, was it just removed? I mean, was it replaced, or the other 2 boats remain?
Yeah, I think I'm understanding your question, but the conception, the vessel no longer exists.
Right.
The other 2 remaining boats, the Vision and Truth, are in the slips there. They're owned by one of the subtenants. And so those boats have been kind of retrofitted and really redone almost completely, but they exist in their place as of now.
Okay. And so I have a question, Commissioner Nelson. Are those, in your deliberations of the subcommittee, did you, are these 2 boats, the Vision and the Quest, I mean, have they been retrofitted up to standards to your satisfaction? You're on mute.
It appears that he's reconnecting or something.
Commissioner Stedman, I don't know specific. Sure. I don't know specifically the situation with each of those boats. I do, however, know that the preferred bidder, if you will, or the bidder that we're recommending to the full commission is making a real focus on the safety requirements, the insurance requirements of the subtenants. So that was one of the strengths of the proposal, was in fact the attention that the organization or the LLC was going to place on that. I do not know the answer to your question specifically to those two votes.
I may know a little bit more for you while Director Wiltshire gets back with us. From my observations, both boats have had two huge bare hatches put through into the bunk areas, one on port and one on starboard forward, so that there are 2 points of egress that would well accommodate just about anybody that I've seen walking. In addition, it's my expectation, although I don't know for sure, that they've connected their fire alarm system together. And then certainly probably one of the most key elements was maintaining a proper watch through the night. And I'm sure that was corrected immediately. That's a standard operating procedure amongst the fleet. It was unfortunately omitted.
Right. Well, thank you. I mean, my confidence is raised tremendously just hearing that from you, Chair McCray, and also Commissioner Nelson's comments.
Director Wiltshire, are you there or not?
Yeah, I'm, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yep. No, I think I didn't know I dropped off, but I'm available.
Very good. Commissioner Kramer and then
Yeah.
Commissioner Sly.
I'm not sure if this is the place to ask it, Mr. Wiltshire. I'm concerned about the cafe part of these bids, I guess, and the competition with the mini mart. Is that being considered? They seem to be selling the same kinds of things.
Yeah, Commissioner Kramer, it was actually looked at as kind of a positive from the waterfront's point of view. That has the ability to do that has existed in their lease, and it just has not been utilized. And so from the waterfront point of view, we were looking to, that was kind of a pro. I don't think what they'll be selling is quite the same. At least the proposer that was recommended by the subcommittee was working with kind of a local coffee purveyor and had a little bit of a different offerings. And so, but it's a legitimate concern. If that's something that you'd like to talk about further, we certainly can, but it is something that's allowed within their lease.
Yeah, I think it's something that should be kept in mind. That I know, for instance, that the bait shop, for instance, on Stearns Wharf had and perhaps still has snacks, and they could not compete with the seafood restaurant right next door in selling the same kinds of things. And I would think that maybe consideration should be given to the mini mart. They've been there for quite a long time, and of course, the waterfront's just put in a new building, etc. And they sell. I think they sell beer, and I'm not sure. I've not bought beer there. I know they sell soft drinks and hot dogs and snacks, and some of which seem to be the same in the ones that are being considered. So I hope that there can be consideration given for that.
I have a quick question. I see the Santa Barbara Landing LLC has basically 4 current subleases that are operating out of this space. Do we know how many total subleases or sublessees we have in that space right now?
Yeah, Commissioner Stanwyck, that's a good question. There's 5 sublessees. So 4 of them.
So there's 4 of them. Okay.
Yeah, 4 of them submitted a proposal under Santa Barbara Landing, and then 1 of them submitted a separate proposal under, I believe it was Expedition Santa Barbara.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think we skipped Commissioner Sly, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I believe I heard that the current rent was, base rent was $10,000 a month, plus there's some percentage rent components in addition to that. So over the last I don't know, term of the extension term, I guess, of the existing lease, has that been on the basis of a CPI increase every year?
Yeah, Commissioner Sly, I don't have that specifically in front of me. I know Mr. Bossy would, but it's very typical that our leases, at least the base rent portion, increases with CPI. So my wholehearted assumption would be that that's been the case. That would be the case for the new lease that we would negotiate.
Okay, and I know that's that's Brian's keeping track of that kind of detail, but maybe you could, if you wouldn't mind, ask him to give me or us just a brief explanation of how that's increased over the years. I mean, this tenant has been there for quite a few years, so it'd be interesting to know the kind of trajectory of the lease over all those years where it's been. I mean, it's a very long time with its base term plus options, and has it been, where did it start and where did it end, and how was it increased versus what today's market is?
Yeah, Commissioner Sy, I know that's great insight, and this is the time to ask those kind of questions as we kind of embark on negotiating a new lease. So I'll get back to you with that and do a little analysis on where that lease has come over the last 25 years.
Okay, thank you.
And do we have any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
When do we, I guess, given the conversation that I just heard, during the lease negotiations, can we implore you to focus, to bring more attention to the safety issues during those negotiations, given the tragedy that occurred so recently? And secondly, I don't know, I know you proposed 10 years plus two option periods. I don't know if it is the practice of the waterfront department to take a look. You mentioned earlier that you had great expectations for the new tenant. It would be good to know before you enter into those two or one of those, the next option period, whether or not the performance has lived up to those expectations. You may do that as a matter of routine. If not, I guess I'm encouraging you to do that with the new tenant.
Yeah, and that will certainly be a part of the negotiations. It's kind of there's a balance there, wanting to give a business entity time to basically invest and root themselves into the business without kind of constraining us too much as a landlord for too long. So I appreciate both sides of the discussion there, and the subcommittee and the Harbor Commission's always been really keen on that. So that is something we'll look into. Maybe the 10 and 2 5s isn't the best. Maybe a 10 and a 5, with the remaining 5 being a true option, where it gives us the ability to go out to RFP if need be after 15 years. But we really do want to get into business with somebody long term, and I would hate for all of our leases to taper off and be coming to and would not have some assurance that we can continue doing business with somebody, because that creates a scenario where they'd be basically having no incentive to invest in their own business.
All right, thank you very much. If there are no further questions for Director Wiltshire, I'll turn to the commission for further discussion. Perhaps somebody from the subcommittee. Well, I myself, I think that staff did a great job ferreting out who the best proposer was, and not only that, who is most likely to be able to be successful at this endeavor. And that's what I saw, and that's why I supported Santa Barbara Landing LLC.
I have a question, Chair McRae and Commissioner Nelson. were you able to review any input from the initial committee? Where the director Wiltshire showed, there was somebody from economic development, somebody from business development at the airport, and there was another person. Did any of those people provide input on their review process? And did you have an opportunity to review that?
So we did not speak with those people ourselves, but we were given to understand that their position was unanimous with respect to their selection, which was pretty powerful.
Okay, fair enough.
Anything further? So, not seeing anything further, I would entertain a motion. And we have before us to accept the request for our subcommittee recommendation and direct staff to negotiate a lease agreement with Santa Barbara Landing LLC.
Chair McCray, before we do a vote, would you like to do public comments? We do have one hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.
So we have one hand raised at the moment. It's Jamie Diamond. If anyone else would like to comment at this time, they can indicate that by using the raise and lower their hand icon on the control panel, and I will call on them when it's their turn to speak. Miss Diamond, I'm going to click on you first. It appears that you're self-muted, but you may begin.
Good evening, Chair McCray, Commissioners, Director Wiltshire. My name is Jamie Diamond, and I am the president for Santa Barbara Landing LLC, and I just wanted to address a few of your questions and concerns. As far as the dive boats, I'd just like to let you know that they're under new ownership. It is not the same ownership as during the conception incident. And as several others have said, those boats have been thoroughly retrofitted, and Coast Guard, all the way up, I believe, to the Admiral maybe, actually went over those boats with a fine-tooth comb. And so they are 100% in tip-top shape, and I can attest to the commitment that the new ownership has to safety of those vessels. As far as current food activities, Commissioner Kramer, I'd like to let you know that currently at the Sea Landing, they do offer beer and wine, sodas, and snacks. And as per the master lease that they have, they do allow for some type of food concession, a deli, I believe specifically is what it says. But it is allowed, it just never was realized. And so that's part of our vision. And we absolutely love Dick and Dolly over there, and we don't want to do anything that would harm them. So we have no plan on doing hot dogs for sure. That's their deal. So don't worry. And Commissioner Sly, I believe it was you asking about the CPI. Yes, in page 5 of the existing master lease, in the 1, 2, 3 bottom last line of the 3rd paragraph, it does adjust with the CPI. It does not exceed 5% in any given year. And all of our vessels are top-rated vessels with the Coast Guard. We get inspected annually, and we do not have any non-compliance issues. And thank you for your time.
And so do we have any questions for Mrs. Jamie Diamond? Yes.
I don't have any question. I just want to thank her for her thoughtfulness about Dick and Dolly.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'll Commissioner Nelson. No, I'll look for.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the approval, the recommendations for A and B.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Nelson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Rodriguez, would you do us the honor of a roll call vote?
Yes, of course. Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sly,
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan,
Yes,
Commissioner Stanwyck,
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes,
Chair McCray.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you. So that with that, we'll move on to the review of the Harbor Patrol activities. Now, this is something that was delayed at the last meeting, so I'm quite looking forward to it. And I understand that Officer Rick Hubbard will present.
Yeah, thanks, Chair McCray. He should be getting on, but I just wanted to introduce our Harbor Patrol Officer, Rick Hubbard, who graciously volunteered to do this. So, Rick, I'll turn it over to you, but I appreciate it.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioner McCray and commissioners. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to do this. Mick Kralman did this, I believe, in 2012, and I'm real excited to give the presentation because we, as Harbor Patrol officers, I know personally myself, I'll tell someone what I do, that I work for the Harbor Patrol, and they'll say, well, what exactly does that involve? And I'll start getting into it, and most people have no idea all the different hats that we wear. So, little background, just real quick. I just had my 20-year anniversary with the city as a Harbor Patrol officer. I worked 2 years before that in Ventura as a Harbor Patrol officer down there. So I'm excited to give this presentation for you. I've been through it. I'm trying to streamline it for both your sakes, and I have shift tonight at midnight, so I don't want to stay up too late. But with that, I'll start the presentation. And if you have any questions, there's a lot of slides. Feel free to stop me, because if we have to go back 20, 30 slides, it might take some time. So feel free to interrupt me. It won't bother me. So as you know, the Harbor Patrol, we fall under the operations division. When we're fully staffed, we have 10 peace officers and 1 supervisor, which is currently Lieutenant Monica Brumand. Next slide. So the mission statement for the Harbor Patrol is, for us, we want to enforce laws on the land and water to facilitate the safe and orderly use of the waterfront area. Other public safety duties include emergency medical care, boating education, ocean response and rescue, and emergency fire response. Next slide. We at the Harbor Patrol, we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We work 4 10-hour shifts, so we have some overlap. We have a day shift, evening shift, and a graveyard shift. We provide service, the security down at the harbor, patrolling the water, the land, and the ocean. We enforce local laws, federal laws, and state laws. We're always coordinating operations with Coast Guard, Santa Barbara Police Department, Fire Department, and the lifeguards. We work closely with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as county fire and sheriffs. We provide a bunch of services that we'll get into. Next slide. If you haven't seen us walking around, we carry about 25 pounds of gear on our belts. Everybody wears a ballistic vest. We have 2 radios. We have a UHF radio that we communicate with the police department and other waterfront departments, as well as a VHF radio where we talk to the Coast Guard and the fire department. We all carry a cell phone, pepper spray. We have a sidearm, a taser, a baton, as well as a bunch of medical gear. We respond throughout the waterfront. We have 2 vehicles, 4-wheel drive vehicles, as well as 4 patrol boats. Next slide. So 3 of the 4 patrol boats have firefighter capability. The newest boat, Patrol Boat 1, is the 22-foot Radin that you see there, and its capability is 500 gallons a minute. to fight fires. Next slide. So, and patrol boat 2 and 3 both can pump 950 gallons a minute. And our 4th boat is the rigid hull inflatable that you see there in the slings. I just want to point out real quick, this person is not a harbor patrol officer, but is our vessel tech, Mark Stouter, works tirelessly to keep these 4 boats running and looking good. So big shout out to Mark for keeping us out on the water. Next slide. So our main area of response when you see us patrolling is pretty much Stearns Wharf to Ledbetter. That's landside. That's where we go in our trucks. Boating patrols, we usually go to Ledbetter Point to about the Clark Estate, just kind of routine checking the anchorage areas. But we will respond further out if we were requested from the police department to go further up the coast or Coast Guard to go out to sea. And if we do have proper coverage for the harbor, we will respond. Next slide. So just like all the departments within the city of Santa Barbara, we have P3 standards that we measure up to. So some of our measurable objectives are right there. We have in-harbor response times, training hours for officers, public events that we have. These are some of the tracking measures. The way this presentation gets bogged down, there's a lot of graphs that show a lot of different numbers. What I would like to do is some of the extreme, there's highs and lows. I can address those if you have questions on those, but a lot of them have to do with some of those periods we were short up to 2 officers, and then obviously the most recent is COVID-19. So like I said, feel free to pause. Otherwise, I'm just gonna kind of move past those and just touch on them real quick. Next slide. So this is a great slide. I love this. One of our objectives, our measurements is number of 5-minute responses within the harbor, our emergency responses. And as you may well know, the difference of getting to an emergency quickly can be the difference between life and death in a medical call, or even a boat sinking, or a boat completely becoming engulfed in flames. So we're real proud that we can get to most of our emergency responses in the harbor in less than 5 minutes. Next slide. Here are some examples of what a medical emergency or emergencies in the harbor. We have medicals, sinking boats, accidents, oil spills, BUIs, burglary, trespassing, tsunami. We had the microburst, and we've unfortunately had some drownings in the harbor. Next slide. Some of the other ones.
I have a quick question, Rick.
Yes.
Officer Hubbard, on BUIs, how do you determine that? Do you do it like a DUI? Do you have a field sobriety test, or?
Yeah, Commissioner Seaman, that's a great question. So we do go through a BUI class that teaches us how to conduct the tests in the field. Usually what we do, since BUI and DUI attorneys know the laws inside and out, we are usually the ones that are the probable cause. We see a boat swerving, smash a dock, we go talk to them, we smell alcohol in their breath, and then we do maybe a few field sobriety, just quick ones. And if they don't pass that, then we bring PD down, and their BUI team will come down. They're the professionals. They do it all the time, and they'll take over and do the rest of the BUI.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Sure. Commissioner Nelson, did you have a question? All right. So as you may know from we've had some significant fires within the harbor. Moby Dick in '98, then in 2002, the Nature Conservancy fire, that's now the Sea Center. Next slide. The Condor Express fire in 2013, Harbor Operations Manager Inga Bretson and I were on that call, and got there under 5 minutes, and were able to put the fire out before the fire department got there, and limiting the damage to just the fly bridge, the steering station where the fire was started. So that was a good save for us. The other photo is just an example. You know, we have boats sinking in the harbor. So next slide. So we average about 106 medical emergencies a year in the harbor. Just real quick, you notice that spike here in 2020. We have a person who lives in their vehicle within the harbor who has severe respiratory diseases, and it's not uncommon. We have run on her 4 times in a 24-hour period, so that spike has to do with that. Next slide. Here's some of the other calls we go on. These are, you know, not limited to, but broken bones, bike accidents, choking, heart attacks, suicide attempts, stingrays, overdose, allergic reactions. Over the 20 years I've been there, you know, we've seen it all. Next slide. Training. As you know, with any professional organization, training is key. Our target is 80 hours a year, and we have averaged 89. Again, this is one of those slides that's, you might have some questions, but in 2017, we were down a couple officers, so training was down. You know, there was some fiscal responsibilities that we weren't sending officers to training. So yeah, that's with that. But we just started a new program, Target Solutions, through the fire department. So we can do a lot more training online while we're on duty, and so we're not accruing costs of sending officers out of town to train. Next slide. So this is a great slide. This is the one where I think a lot of people, when they see us, don't realize this is what is required before you get hired. We all have our Coast Guard license, which is, if you don't know, a minimum of 360 days on the water before you can even sit for that exam. We all are EMTs, which is about a semester, and it's a pretty rigorous class. And then our PC-832, which gives us the right to carry guns and do our law enforcement. That's just before you get in. As well, there is a lifeguarding portion as well. And then once you're in, these are a list of the Cal Boating classes that we go to. The first one is a 2-week class. Marine firefighting is a week, rescue boat ops is a week, accident investigation is a week. And then our BUI is, I believe it's just a 2 or a 3-day class. So you can see there's quite a few hours. We don't officially do an academy, it's like a fire department or a police department, but when you add up all the training that we do, it's pretty significant. Next slide. So this is some of the ongoing requirements that we have. So the first is the HAZWOPER. That's the Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. So that teaches us how to deal with hazardous materials. The CLETS, the next one is so we training on when we run someone's information, the restrictions of what you can and can't do with that information. Recurring training, we have lifeguard every 2 years, CPR every 2 years, as well as our EMT. We've all gone through the underwater hull cleaning, which leads to our Clean Marina program. We've had this great training that's put on by the county on how to deal with folks with mental illnesses or developmental disabilities. You know, it's coming into the forefront these days. It's a big how we deal with these people and recognizing signs and symptoms is important. We do in-house defensive tactics that I'll talk a little bit more later. And then this last one is fairly new, and it's something I'm really proud of, is we have 2 TCTI certified peer support counselors. So this is part of the At Ease program, and I won't get into it in details, but the At Ease program is available to first responders and their families if they're suffering from depression or anxiety, they can free of charge call and have confidential counselors to talk to. So we have Officer Ryan Kelly and Officer Nathan Aldridge are both trained peer support counselors. They are on the Santa Barbara team and can be dispatched anywhere within the state or even in the country. We send people, they haven't, but they can. And they deal with critical incident stress debriefing. So we're real proud that we have that opportunity and excited to have those two officers participating in that. Next slide. So firearms training obviously is very important for us. So we have our quarterly range qualifications. And real quick on that, recently we brought that in-house. One of our officers, Carl Halamachek, is our firearms instructor. He is an FBI firearms instructor as well as a TACFire tactical handgun instructor. So he comes up with all of our quarterly training. He keeps us on track on what we should be doing, the different nighttime shoots, shooting while moving. It's been great having him there. He's really made it interesting and really a good learning environment. And we also have 2 certified armorists that we have in-house that can keep all of our firearms clean. And in our marine environment, it's tough, and so they have a tough job keeping everything clean. We also do special training up at CSTI in San Luis Obispo with other agencies. We do actual live fire where it's pretty intense. You put on a like an electronic vest, and then you put your clothes over it, and you run your scenarios. And if you get shot, that vest sends electrical jolts throughout your torso, so you really know it when you get hit, and it adds that element that you don't want. That once you've felt it for the first time, you don't want to feel it again, and it's a great training. As well as we do training with our local PD, SWAT, and the hostage negotiation teams. Next question, or next slide. So oil spill response training. This is a big one. It's not something that we do a lot, but we just saw it recently in Huntington Beach, and we headed up the coast here in Santa Barbara. But if you've seen the trailer in our launch ramp, that's our oil boom trailer, and it holds 1,600 feet of absorbent boom. That's what you see right there. Or that's the hard boom, excuse me, that is available. So if we do have a major spill within the harbor, let's say, or inside that we don't want it to leave the harbor, or outside we don't want it to come in, we can tow that trailer onto the beach fairly quickly. We anchor one end into West Beach. We use our boats to pull it across. We're outside of the bait barge, and we have a hard fixed point on the breakwater on the sand spit, and we can, from start to finish, we can usually get that boom deployed. I would say in less than 30 minutes. So that's something that we train on at least once a year. Next slide. So we also do a lot of joint agency training. We do a lot with the Coast Guard with their helicopters. I'm not sure if you're all aware, the station used to be out of LAX. And so when they would need training, they would usually call the Baywatch boats or the Long Beach Lifeguard boats for help. Now that they're in Point Hueneme, we're getting called more frequently. Not only do the pilots need hours, but the flight engineers that hoist up and down the basket need training. So they call us quite regularly, and we'll go out and do that training, which is, it's a fun training. I mean, it's amazing when you see that helicopter just right above you. It's pretty fun. And then we've also done joint trainings with the fire department and their water rescue team. Next slide. So this is our defensive tactics, which important in our line of work that we follow. The force continuum. We don't want to, do anything that will put us in a bad light. So we have. Again, same as our range instructor, Carl Halamachek. is our defensive tactics training officer. He teaches us edge weapon defense, ground fighting, controlled force, weapon retention, water survival. We'll go to Los Baños and do some stuff there, and basic martial arts. I don't know if you've ever met Carl. He is 6'4", 220 pounds. And when he puts on that fight suit that's all padded, that you can punch and hit it with different things, he is a monster coming at you. And it's definitely makes you, in that top picture, actually, that I believe that's Eli Brower, who is 6 feet tall, and he looks kind of small compared to Carl. So next slide. Public outreach. This is our class tours that we do. This is a lot of things like that. So we average about 45 tours a year. Next slide. So this is a picture of a class tour. This is typical. We'll bring, this is Aqua Camp group. They come down in the summertime. We pull out all of our gear. We explain all the different things that we do. Turn the water monitor on and let them shoot some water. It's a great PR event. They love it. This is Officer Kelly here at the safety fair with his son, who is now 19 or 18 years old. So it's been a while. Next slide. Some of the other tours you do, in case you're wondering, that handsome fella is me right there with Santa Claus. We also do tours for the police department. They're rookie officers. And the dispatchers to give them orientation. We've taken the new firefighters come down to get a orientation, as well as city council and some of the harbor commissioners. And if you haven't, feel free to come down anytime. We'd love to take you around and show you the harbor from our eyes. These are some of the events: 4th of July, Harbor Festival, Parade of Lights. Next slide. So this is calls for service. Calls for service basically is anytime someone calls us on the phone or calls us on the radio that we're leaving to go investigate or to go look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean an emergency. So we average about 1,940 calls annually. Next slide.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kramer, do you have a question?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. That's a major drop in the calls for services. Do you have any idea why that's happening?
Yes. So the first thing, the calls for service, it's not something like a motor patrol or a foot patrol that we can generate. This is something that's publicly generated. So if we're not getting calls, then we can't go out to them. So I think it's a combination of that. And I also think a lot of it, that 2019 to 2021 numbers, that significant drop has got to be to COVID, because the numbers weren't there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, next slide. So this is typical calls for service. Someone calls us to check someone in the restrooms. It can be emergency medical. It could be law enforcement, fires, public complaints, shark sighting. Those are the typical. Next slide. So emergency response outside the harbor. That's one of our performance measures that we record. So next slide. So we average about 105 emergency calls outside of the harbor annually. So we've stayed pretty consistent with that. Next slide. Here's kind of some of the things that we'll go to: sinking vessels, capsize, vessel fires, the conception. A big one these days is the kite surfers. We get a lot of those. Wind dies down and the kite surfers are mile offshore, have no way to get in. We're responding out there. Boats dragging. I don't know if you heard that we had that big wind event a few weeks ago. I was on the evening shift with Jessica Gray, and Officer Martinez came on. We had 3 boats called in that were 25 to 30 feet from the wharf, dragging towards Stearns Wharf. So we spent the next 3 hours jumping on the boats, cutting anchors, buoying off the anchors, towing the boats inside so they wouldn't hit the wharf. There's that, and then we do surfer and swimmers assists. And then the landside emergency outside the harbor will go to the hotels along Cabrillo. Will respond to traffic accidents, bicycle accidents, even over to LaPlace Stadium for some of the injuries there. Next slide.
Officer Hubbard? Officer,
Yes, sorry.
do we have a net? Do we have a net that protects, it's me, Stedman. Do
Oh,
we have a
sorry.
net? That's okay. Do we have a net that protects Stearns Wharf for boats that are adrift from the moorings?
Good question, Commissioner Sedman. We have what's called a trap line. It's set out November 1st through April 1st, I believe it is. And it's a giant anchor on East Beach and a buoy outside, and it's a line that's attached the whole way. And what it is, we call it the trap line. So if a boat comes inside, so it's in the Y of the wharf, the theory is that it hits that line, and instead of continuing on to the roadway, it will follow the line into the beach and go aground instead of hitting the roadway. Because hitting the roadway would be, if we lost that, it would be devastating for the businesses out there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Next slide. Emergency vessel tows outside. Oh, this is just a couple grounded vessels, usually in the wintertime. Some of you have been here. Chair McCray, I'm sure you've seen the years where we've had 7 or 8 boats up and down East Beach. Like Eric said, we haven't had that many. And next slide. And here's an example where I think the vessel turn-in program and that SAFE program that Eric was talking about has come into play, that we contact a lot of the boat owners out there before they get to that state where they're dragging into the shore or breaking their anchor line and ending up on the beach. So we average about 59 emergency tows. And I think that number is going to continue to go down with this program being in place. Next slide. This just shows we tow as small as the catamaran. Big, I think that's the Vaquero that used to be out in the Anchorage. And even I've towed the Spirit of Dana Point, the big tall ship that comes in every now and then. So we pretty much have the capabilities to tow most everything that can come into our harbor. Next slide. Non-emergency tows. Commissioner Kramer, I know you're going to ask. This is dramatic. I think we averaged 337. What I was going to say about this, I went back and I checked 2011 to 2015, and we averaged 315. So we are still a little bit below, but non-emergency tows are, we go to the next slide. So this is a non-emergency tow. So if someone is coming in from a sail to the island, they can't get their engine running, we'll tow them to the slip. We'll tow them to the travel hoist to go to the maintenance yard, to the launch ramp. During construction, when we're doing the wharf, when we do finger work, a lot of the owners can't come down and move their boats. So we're moving their boats around. So we get a lot of non-emergency towing that way. And during COVID in the lockdown, we suspended all non-emergency tows just for COVID. So I think that has a direct correlation to that number dropping as it did. Next slide. Enforcement contacts. We average 2,084 a year, and again, we see this drop off. And again, this is a function, we don't create the law enforcement, we just respond to it. So if the numbers are down, I would like to say that our presence out there is maybe deterring some of the law enforcement. We're getting a lot of foot patrols in, motor patrol, boat patrols, but again, I think a big portion of that is COVID-19. Next slide. So this is a typical boating when we're out on the water. Of course, safety is always our most important. So we're looking for people on kayaks and SUPs and boats, as everybody who needs to be wearing PFDs, boats operating in the swim area, you know, alcohol, illegal camping, ocean pollution, illegal berthing. Those are all things that we're kind of just on, not that we're called to, but routinely we're looking for. And then here, the more significant, that more likely to be called to, are BUIs, trespassing, domestic violence, and assaults. Next slide. Enforcement context. This statement here, most enforcement context results in warning. I would say that is true with our boating contacts. As most of you probably are aware by now, that most people who boat don't know a lot about the rules and the regulations of boating. And so we try to do a lot of enforcement or education out there. You know, we have the ABCs of boating. New boaters will give the pamphlet to, and you know, give them some guidance there, and try to educate them on what they're doing wrong. As far as landside enforcement contacts, I think it would be less of warnings when we have illegal entries into the marinas. We have open containers, those kind of things. Those aren't warnings. We're citing for those type of things. Next slide. So this is arrests. Arrests doesn't necessarily mean physically handcuffed and taken away. This could just be a notice to appear. You're issued a citation. Another, sometimes what I failed to mention too is in 2017, we were down 2 officers. So I think some of the dips that you might see in some of these areas have to do with we're low on officers. 2019, we had officer out on light duty. We've had injuries. So I think those are some of the, along with COVID-19, why our numbers show a little towards that are down a bit. Next slide. Parking citations. Again, I did talk to Caesar about this and ask him, you know, his opinions on this, and we could only kind of come up with that. You know, we had issues in the harbor parking lot, and we've had new regulations, and then you can see, you know, the high numbers of enforcement. And then after 2019, when the new regulations came in, that has dropped significantly, I think, because issues that we were having have been addressed. And for part of the lockdown, we did not enforce parking enforcement. I believe it was for 3 or 4 months in the main harbor lot for COVID-19 for people who were displaced and might have had problems getting their vehicles. So that could be another reason why that parking citation is low. Next slide. This is typical what we do, the main lot, red zones, handicap, and launch ramp violations. Next slide. So a motor, like I said, we patrol the waterfront area all different ways, foot, boat, and motor. We average 2,500 motors a year. Next slide. These are when we're out in the truck, kind of what we're looking for: parking violations, disturbances, illegal camping, you know, marine mammals on the beach, debris, things like that. Next slide. Foot patrols average 3,669 until this 2019-2020, and I think you're starting to see it's not just one. It's not just boat patrols or foot patrols or motor patrol. Over all three, there's a significant trend that we're seeing. And I going back to all the reasons that I've stated. So next slide. But foot patrols are really important. It's something the administration pushes for. And I personally like getting out into the marinas. I love talking to the boat owners. You know, a lot of times you'll get questions that may not want to come up into the office to ask you. We're always looking for, violations or obstructions or various things out in the marina. But so we encourage, all of our officers are encouraged to get out there and get their foot patrols in. We also are on foot checking the facilities, the public restrooms. As you're aware, it's becoming a hot topic for the liveaboards with illegal entries into the marinas or into the restrooms. So we're really stepping up our patrols over there in Marina 2, 3, and 4 restrooms. We would go to the alarms at the Waterfront Center building, the Yacht Club, and the IH is the Ice House. So we need to get the maintenance people over to check on that, as well as some of the buildings in the commercial areas. Next slide. Boat patrols. So here, 1,742 we averaged. I started looking back, and I kind of wish maybe I would have done it for some of the other slides. But what I did was the first quarter of that final reporting year, there were 728 boat patrols. And then the third and fourth quarter, there was only 242. So that's where we see COVID. That's where we see we're not doing non-emergency tows. But that first quarter, that 728 puts us right up there, close to average. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. So when we're out on the boats, like we say, we're looking for safety violations or make sure people are operating correctly. BUI, big pieces of, I think that's from the clean sweep debris that was found on the bottom, but we get reports of hazardous navigation. We'll go pick that up and while we're out on patrols. Next slide. Bird rescues is something that we do. We don't do a lot of it. In 2020, we had 6 seabirds that we rescued. We have containers, we have nets, and we will go out and pick up these birds. But the Wildlife Care Network has such a great organization, and their volunteers are awesome. We can call them, and they're down pretty quick to get these birds, or if we've already have them, to pick them up. Next slide. Marine mammal. This is this I can speak to directly. So you see the drop there. In past years, we did a lot of marine mammal rescues, and as you know, sea lions, elephant seals can get massive, and we've had officers injured. So policy changed that we're not capturing large animals anymore. So we will still go get the smaller ones. But again, just like with the Wildlife Care Network, the CIMWI, the Channel Islands Wildlife Institute, is a great organization. They're quick, really responsive. They get down, they rope off animals when they're on the beach. It's great having them nearby. So yeah, that I can speak to that drop there. Next slide. This is the upper one. That's a baby elephant seal on the top, and then that bottom picture you can see that's a 400 to 500 pound sea lion, and that's a giant cage that we're trying to work to get them into. So you can see how it can be tricky with these guys. And you can see there we've also helped 2 wayward gray whales in the harbor. Next slide. Sharks. This will perk up everybody. Everybody gets excited when they see the shark signs. So the waterfront, along with Parks and Rec, has been working with the state to try to come up with a standard for signage, so that when you go to Santa Barbara and you see signs, it's the same in Ventura or San Diego. So basically, there's 3 levels of postings. First is the advisory. It's that center black one, and that's just if someone calls in and they reported seeing a shark in the waterfront area, in the near shore area, and then we believe that it's a credible, someone knows it wasn't a dolphin, then that's the first posting is an advisory. Next is a warning, and that would be if a shark again, after being interviewed, it was determined to be an aggressive, maybe tried to strike a paddleboard or a kayak, or maybe even bit a sea lion, because that's what they're supposed to do, bite sea lions. We would post a warning. And then the final is the closure. That would be an actual a shark that bit a human, and we would put closures down. And our closures go from Mesa Lane, the steps up on Mesa Lane, all the way to the Clark Estates. And we try to get entry points where people would maybe come down the footpath at Ledbetter. We'll put signs there at the entrance next to the maintenance shed on West Beach and throughout Ledbetter, East Beach, so everybody can see the signs. Next slide. In other animals, we've gotten some dogs, and if you didn't know, that's Officer Kelly. We did rescue a show horse. He rescued a show horse that decided to swim offshore several years ago, and made pretty big headlines nationally. So, next slide. There it is. That's the one you were looking for, the conclusion. So, again, thank you. I want to thank you guys. I know a lot of it, some of it's a little dry, but but I'm not sure the public always knows that we often work outside of the public view on the ocean at night. And so a lot of times it goes unnoticed. It doesn't make news. So we hope that this report has shed some light upon the Harbor Patrol's day-to-day responsibilities. Not only that, but on our commitment to the city and the waterfront alike. So with that, next slide, a little nice, beautiful sunset. That's a sunrise. Actually, this is one of the perks of the graveyard shift. That's what you get to see from our office. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy. It did go long. Sorry.
Questions for Officer Hubbard?
Yes.
Great report, Officer Hubbard. That was really interesting, really informative, and well done. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Slade.
I agree.
Yeah. I'll second.
Good. Well, and it looks like I got you out before your 8:30 deadline. So, yes, Betsy.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kramer, sorry.
I echo the others. It's just a great report, and one thing you didn't emphasize, which I think really should, is how pleasant your officers are, and what a nice atmosphere that they give to the waterfront, and it makes, I think, for those of us who are not breaking the law, it's a very welcoming group that you have. So thank you very, very much.
I'll be sure to pass that on to everybody.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Officer Hubbard, that was a wonderful presentation. In fact, I noticed in there you mentioned ride-alongs. Would it be possible for me to ride along with you one day or one Saturday morning?
Absolutely. We've had commissioners in the past come down. Just make sure that
I'll work it through Mike Wiltshire. I won't just surprise you.
There you go. Go straight to the top. That's the way to do it.
But I also am impressed that you have, I noticed that at the bottom it says Santa Barbara Performance Measures 2021. Do you do this annually?
So we have different officers have different tasks, officer assignments, and one of our officers is tasked with the P3 stats. So he keeps those, he does it monthly, keeps it, and we have an Excel spreadsheet. So at the end of the year, I can go pull that and find all that information.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. Do you use it to set objectives for?
You froze up, but I think
coming year. So, for example, I like the idea that arrests are going down. So do you have objectives that you try to accomplish? You take a look at these numbers in 2021, and then when you do it in 22, 23, you say, here's what we're going to try to accomplish.
Yeah, and Eric could probably speak more towards that. He's the one who has to set our objectives. So but yes, you're exactly right. We kind of see where we've been going and try to set goals for ourselves moving forward.
And my final question is, are you the only division in the waterfront department that does this? or does everybody do it?
The P3s,
Yeah,
every department has their own their performance that they need to report.
that's great, because I'm one of these fellows that likes to see, try to set objectives year to year and have priorities, and those priorities show up in the budget. And this process is a great way to do that. And
Oh,
I'm going to suggest to Mike that we review or get a presentation like this from some of the other divisions that exist in the waterfront department. This was great. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
And
With
it looks like we're out of questions. Thank you very much. Great
right.
presentation. Long
right.
one. Good job. Thank you.
Be sure to,
Thank
you
you,
guys,
Officer
when you're down at the harbor, feel free to come up and say hi. And, we always love seeing you guys. I mean, sometimes we don't always, may not show it, but we like seeing you guys around. And when you pop your head in the office, we enjoy that.
Thank you.
All righty. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. Great presentation. It's good to see all that data. I think that brings us to the subcommittee reports. The RFP subcommittee has had its say, so we won't go there. Are there any others?
No new updates on the slip policy committee.
Very good. And so that brings us to commission and staff communications. And I don't think this gets mentioned, but if there is something that you'd like to see on an agenda in the future, I think this is probably the best time to kind of speak up and get it into staff's ears so they can start looking forward to maybe getting it in there at some point.
I thought Director Wiltshire said this was going to be a relatively brief meeting.
Hey, the dig. It was good. It was all good stuff.
That was a long report.
Yeah, it was good.
But a good report.
It was a good one. Yeah.
Chair McCray, before we split, I did have one note. Everyone's getting their calendars ready for the holiday, so just wanted to let the commission know that kind of as per tradition, we'll cancel the December meeting. So we will have the November meeting, but we're going to cancel the December meeting.
Very good.
That's all for me for now.
Yeah. A question, Mike. On the parade of lights, will there be the gathering on Stearns Wharf and as before or not?
Yeah, I believe anything outdoor, we're not going to promote any of the indoor or sort of the VIP or after parties or before parties, but we are going to put the sort of bleachers out on Stearns Wharf and allow people to kind of gather outdoors however they see fit.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. I see no more hands. So let's come to that point of the meeting where I look for a motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right,
I'll
let's see if
second
it
that.
dies through like a second.
I second the motion.
Oh, it's got a second. I'm not thinking there's any discussion, so we'll go straight to a roll call vote unless anybody objects.
No objections? Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Commissioner Sly,
Yes.
Commissioner Sloan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanwyck,
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Absolutely.
and Chair McCray.
Yes,
All right, that's unanimous.
thank you all. See you next month.